Hi there, it's Mark McDonald from apneatreatmentcenter.com. In this quick video, I'm going to cover the types of sleep apnea, and I'll answer the question, what are the main types of sleep apnea? So let's jump in. But before we get into the presentation, just a quick little bit about me. I started researching sleep apnea treatments in 2008 when my wife was struggling with breathing in her sleep, and I did some Google searches and found out that she had obstructive sleep apnea. I've since found out, or since then, my father has been diagnosed with moderate obstructive sleep apnea, and I've continued my research and I've uncovered dozens of treatments that are alternatives to using the CPAP. And a lot of these treatments most family doctors don't even know about. And I think they don't know about them because most family doctors don't have the time to keep up with sleep apnea treatments. And sleep apnea is also just one of the many health conditions that family doctors deal with. So if you want more information on that, especially on treatments that don't involve using CPAP, which a lot of people can't stand, please go to my website at apneatreatmentcenter.com. Okay, so let's jump into the presentation. So there are three main types of sleep apnea. The first one is obstructive sleep apnea, second is central sleep apnea, and the third is a mix of the two, which is called complex sleep apnea, and I'll get into a description in a second. So first of all, obstructive sleep apnea, well, what is it? Well, it's primarily caused by a complete collapse or blockage of the upper respiratory tract. In other words, your upper airway, the upper part of your throat, becomes blocked when you sleep. And there are a bunch of ways that this happens, but in this diagram here, you can see that on the left, it shows an open airway, so the air through the nose and the throat is coming in properly and going down the throat. But when the airway is closed, in other words, when you have an apnea or a cessation of breathing, then the airway is blocked. And that can either be blocked through your nasal passage or through your throat. So with obstructive sleep apnea, during sleep, all the body's muscles are in a relaxed state. Your upper throat muscles should remain open for airflow, but when the muscles are over-relaxed, they become floppy and cause an obstruction to the airflow. So obstructive sleep apnea can happen in a couple of ways. One way I've just described here is when the tissue in your upper airway, your upper throat becomes relaxed, the muscles relax, or there's too much tissue in your upper airway. And when you relax during the night when you're asleep, then your upper airway closes because of all that fatty or unmuscular upper airway tissue. The second major way, is through a nasal blockage. So if you have a problem with blockage in your nose, like a deviated septum, enlarged turbinates, or things like that, that can also cause obstructive sleep apnea. So as I say down here, sleep is then interrupted as you try to breathe again. So as I just mentioned quickly, there are a bunch of causes of obstructive sleep apnea. I'll just quickly go through them. The biggest one is the one up here on the top left, excess fat accumulation around the neck. A lot of people who are overweight, and mostly people who are obese, have obstructive sleep apnea, even if they don't know it. In fact, one study found that up to 80% of people who are obese have obstructive sleep apnea. And again, a lot of those people don't know it. They're tired during the day, they don't sleep very well, they're fatigued, and they just chalk it up to a bad sleep, when it's in fact sleep apnea that they have. So as I mentioned, there are a bunch of other things that can cause obstructive sleep apnea. Going down the left-hand side here, deviated septum in your nose, enlarged nasal turbinates, again in your nose, a thick and soft palate and uvula. The soft palate is the top of your mouth. There's the hard part, which is the hard part, which is the hard palate, and the soft palate, which is the softer, more spongy top of your mouth. And the uvula is that little dangly thing that dangles in at the back of your throat. Also, a disproportionate size of the tongue and tonsils in relation to the windpipe opening. So if you have an extra large tongue or tonsils, which some people have, that can also cause obstructive sleep apnea. Then looking at the top right of the screen, anatomy problems of the head and neck causing a narrow airway. So some people are just born with an airway that's narrow, more narrow than usual. That can cause obstructive sleep apnea. And age-related muscle tone loss of the throat muscle. So people who are over the age of, say, 60 or even over the age of 50, the muscles in their upper airways tend to become weaker. That can cause a collapse of the upper airway during sleep. So what are the symptoms of obstructive sleep apnea? Well, there's a bunch of them, most notably loud and chronic snoring, snoring with intermittent pauses during which it would appear that the sleeper has stopped breathing, and that's what the apnea is. It's when you stop breathing. Gasping and choking during sleep, as I mentioned, that was my wife's symptoms, and that's why I went online and got into this, the whole sleep apnea treatments, is because she would wake up gasping for breath in the middle of her sleep. And then there are indirect symptoms like daytime sleepiness, focusing problems, depression, irritability, lack of interest in sex, forgetfulness, irrational weight gain, etc. So if you have any of those things, you need to check with your doctor, and you can also check out my website for more information, because obstructive sleep apnea, or any kind of sleep apnea, is a serious health condition. So what is central sleep apnea? Well, this happens when you repeatedly stop breathing during sleep because the brain temporarily stops sending signals to the muscles that control the breathing. In other words, your brain stops telling you to breathe. So that's what central sleep apnea is. It's a neurological problem. It's quite different from obstructive sleep apnea, obviously. This is a problem with your brain sending a signal to you to breathe. So what are the causes? I won't get into all these in detail, but you can read the slide here. So arthritis and degenerative changes in the cervical spine or the base of the skull, complications of cervical spine surgery, encephalitis affecting the brainstem, obesity, radiation of the cervical spine, stroke affecting the brainstem. So you can see that most of these causes of central sleep apnea have to do with the brain, and that's why it's very important that you speak to a specialist about this, because it's not something that you can simply cure yourself. So what are the central sleep apnea symptoms? First of all, disrupted breathing during the sleep. As with any sleep apnea, that's the number one symptom. Tiredness, daytime fatigue, morning headaches, restless sleep, problems with swallowing, voice change, and a numbness affecting the whole body. So you want to look at a couple of these symptoms that are different from obstructive sleep apnea. So for example, problems with swallowing, voice change, numbness affecting the whole body. If you have any of those conditions, you should talk to your doctor. And the third type of sleep apnea is complex sleep apnea. So this consists of all or predominantly obstructive apneas, which then become central apneas when treated with a CPAP or with other kind of positive airway pressure device. So in other words, in plain English, what this means is that if you have obstructive sleep apnea and you get it treated with a CPAP and you still have apneas, then it's quite possible that you have central apnea as well, and that is what's causing your sleep apnea. So in other words, it's not the obstructive sleep apnea that's the problem, it's the central sleep apnea. But you can only figure that out after getting treated with a CPAP. So complex sleep apnea is characterized by a persistence of central apneas when exposed to CPAP or BiPAP, even after obstructive apnea has disappeared. So as I say, once you've treated your OSA, then the central apneas are still there, and that's when you know that you have complex sleep apnea. So patients who have obstructive or mixed apnea episodes occurring at least 5 times an hour during a diagnostic sleep study. So that's another indicator of complex sleep apnea. So in conclusion, anyone can be affected by sleep apnea, especially with the most common type, obstructive sleep apnea. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, there are literally millions of people, especially people who are overweight or obese, who are fatigued during the day and they have sleep apnea and they just don't know it. So if you have any of the symptoms mentioned in this video, please do check out my website and also speak with your family doctor. So knowing the symptoms of each type of sleep apnea can help with an early diagnosis and for appropriate treatment to be initiated. So again, knowing the symptoms is very important. Much more important is getting it treated, because sleep apnea can lead to some serious health conditions long term and even death. So if you need help with your sleep apnea, please do visit my free website. There are dozens and dozens of in-depth plain English articles on the website. It's apneatreatmentcenter.com. You can find easy ways to get diagnosed, cutting-edge sleep apnea treatments, and some of these most family doctors don't even know about because it's new research, how to get support, and there's a whole lot more on the website. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you got a lot of it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks.